All right, well, welcome to session 8 as we continue our series on Generation Z and reading through this book. I again hope that you're learning more and more each and every week and you're being challenged each and every week. And today in this session, I want to challenge us with a thought, we're going to look at a passage, but also kind of want to zoom out and kind of look at Rising Church in general and what we can do to kind of live this out. And so I want to just start off with this passage that I think kind of challenges all of us. It's actually specifically written by Peter to the elders, which, sometimes we think of elders as being a title, like the elders of Rising Church, the elder board, but you can also kind of see it as a general kind of plea or challenge to the older generation as well. And so I want to read it to you, and I kind of want to unpack it and then again apply it back to our situation as a church, as a Rising Church. And it says this in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 2. He says, "Be shepherds of God's flock that is under your care, watching over them, not because you must, but because you are willing, as God wants you to be, not pursuing dishonest gain, but eager to serve, not lording it over those entrusted to you, but being examples to the flock." And I just want to bring this passage up because it's kind of this challenge to me where he's saying, hey, shepherds, you're the older generation, the elders of the church. He's saying you need to see yourselves as being shepherds of God's flock and that he's entrusted others to your care. And so you need to take that role seriously. You need to understand your position and how you have this authority and how you need to be this example to those under you. He says, don't do it because you have to, but do it because you're willing. He's like, do this, play this role because you feel like this is what God wants you to do and you're willing to do it. You're glad to do it. You're eager to do it. You're not doing it because you're forced to do it, but because you actually desire to. And he says, as that's the way that God wants you to. He says, don't do it for your own gain, but do it for their gain. He says, be eager to serve and to look to the interests of others. He says, don't kind of empower and just kind of puff up and say, well, I'm the older generation. You guys got to do what I tell you to do. He says, don't do that. He says, hey, be examples to the flock. And I kind of want to zoom this in on Rising Church because I really honestly believe we're trying to do something super unique, very much countercultural to what I feel like is the popular culture when it comes to church today, which is pretty much that nobody knows anybody. It's the thing you attend. You guys have heard me talk about this before. It's more of an attendance thing. We just kind of show up and you kind of just watch what's going on. You're a spectator. And that's not what Paul is saying, or Peter is saying here. He's like, no. You're not just here to be a spectator. No. You're here to be a shepherd. You're here to guide the flock that God has entrusted to you. And in order to do that, you have to know people. You have to know the flock. You got to know the sheep. You have to do it not just because you, again, have to, but because you want to, because you're eager to do it. You have to serve those people. And so I think if we have that mentality as a church, because we're trying to do, I think, differently. I was reminded of this just this past week. Obviously, we had Greg's passing, which was very difficult for all of us, but then we also had a family where we were together in that. And in the same day, we actually had a guy I was reading on Facebook, and it was one of the guys that went to the church that I grew up to, and his name was Jan Gilbert, and he had also passed away, and his service was the same day as Greg's. And he just kind of brought back all these memories to me, because when I was growing up, I didn't, back in the day, we didn't have these gigantic churches where, they were much more intimate, and that was kind of the way they were. Not all of them, but the one I grew up in was, a few hundred people. And Jan Gilbert, he wasn't a youth leader. He wasn't, he wasn't really, he was just a parent of some other kids. But it's like, he knew me. It's like he knew me by name. He knew Aaron Young. It's like if I kind of look back, I can see how he was just always around. He was always being this example. He was always kind of encouraging me. He saw his responsibility as not just take care of his kids, but to take care of me. And so he was a volunteer. He was a Sunday school teacher. I think I was in fifth grade, he was our Sunday school teacher. He was just kind of always this presence, and he was this example constantly that I could look up to as this kid growing up, as this middle schooler growing up, as this high schooler growing up, of here's this guy who's pursuing Jesus, and he was this example to me, even though he didn't have the official title of elder, excuse me. Even though he didn't have an official title as a youth pastor or a pastor, he was just always kind of that kind of person in me. And so when he passed away, I was messaging his kids who are a little bit younger than me, and just saying, I'm just so grateful for Jan's influence on me and how he was kind of the shepherd to me, even though he didn't officially have the title of shepherd to Aaron Young, but that's kind of the role he played. And I was mindful of this past week, just even on Sunday afternoon, this past Sunday, I guess, by the time when we watched this, when we had our baptisms and we had Abigail and Asher, and just seeing everybody surrounding them and saying, no, these are the kids that have been entrusted to our care, and we need to know them. And I feel like I'm afraid in a lot of churches today, the popular culture is that nobody knows who these kids are. Nobody knows them by name. Maybe one person may know them because they're the Sunday school teacher or small group leader or whatever, but that's about it in a gigantic setting. And how we're trying to do something different. That's what I want us to embrace. I want to embrace that we're trying to be a family as a church. And so I want to challenge you, as we're all shepherds. It's not just, hey, Aaron's the shepherd or the elders are the shepherds. No. This is like a call to all of us. Peter's saying, no, you got to be a shepherd to those that God has entrusted to your care, to the kids, to the children, to the youth, to the 20-somethings, to those, anybody who's younger than you, really, in that sense. He's like, no, you need to do it, not because you have to, not because you're being forced to, because you got to check off your list of things to do. No, because this is what God has called you to do. And therefore, you want to serve these people, and you want to serve this generation, and you want to serve these other people because you want to help them grow. It's your investment, it's your legacy, and it's part of your responsibility as the older generation. And so to me, a couple simple steps. I would say one is know some kids. Know some youth. Know their names. Pray for them by name. Maybe it's the kids that are babysitting in your grove, or the kids that they are babysitting. It's the youth. It's like, how many do you know? How many do you know by name that you could like just list off? Like, here are some kids' names that I know that have been entrusted to our care as a church body, and that they would know who I am and I would know who they are. And there's a simple challenge. How many kids do you know by name? How many youth do you know by name? How many are you investing in, whether intentionally or unintentionally, in the sense that you're being a model to them and you're showing them the way to go? Another tangible example of this is we're coming to the end of our Grove series. And so obviously we've had these students who have been babysitting and providing so that the younger generation of parents can come to Grove. And we do this every single semester. We ask everybody to be giving towards that, because we're investing in the youth who are investing in the kids, and we're investing in these youth so they can go on their mission trips and their summer camps and go to beach camp or go to Greece this summer and serve with the ministries there with Young Life Middle East, or when they're going into interstate Chicago, or they're going down to Orlando and working with people there. And so we just want to be supporting our students as they're investing in others. And so we have to invest in them, whether financially as a church body or just giving to support them, babysitting our kids so that we can do Groves. And so I know you're tired of me always saying that, but I think that's a tangible way for us to invest in the next generation. Say, hey, no, we know you by name. We know your story. We even know where you're going this summer. We're excited about you. We're going to be praying for you, and we're going to be sending you. I mentioned Jan Gilbert. That family, that man, he supported me in all my mission trips. Even though, he wasn't my youth pastor. He wasn't a pastor in the church. He wasn't a lead, in that sense, a leader in the youth program. But when I went back and I could look at, here's all my trips, it'd be like, Jan Gilbert was praying for me. Jan Gilbert supported me financially to go on these mission trips so that I could become who God called me to be. And so I just want us to all kind of have that mentality that, hey, no, being a shepherd to God's flock is not just a title for a few people. It's supposed to be a responsibility for all of us. And so what are we doing to be with the kids and the students and the youth that have been entrusted to us? How many do you know by name? How many are you willing to support? How many do you encourage when you see them? Get to know them. They may be a little scary. They may be a little intimidating, but I'm telling you right now, if they have multiple adults in the church that know them by name and respond to them by name and ask them how they're doing, not just, the youth leaders or Blaine and Bailey and Tony, but the rest of us, it's going to make a big difference. And I believe that's the kind of church that we want to be. And so that's my little plea to you, my little challenge to you as we get near the end of this series, and how we actually start applying it more and more and more to how we're going to be as a church. So I hope you guys will have a great discussion today. Hopefully that's some food for thought that you can take with you as we begin this week. And we will see you next week for round 9.